All right, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to another great episode on your favorite political talk show, The Truth, with Ben Jokes. Breaking news: Nigeria has been ranked 7th in the world for helping strangers, according to the UN World Happiness Report 2025. And Michael here says, wait, seriously? They are supposedly helping the world before their own people? That is kind of messed up if you ask me. Charity starts at home, right? Someone has got their priorities mixed up. That is it. We are a country that helps other people but can't help ourselves. We are wicked to our own selves. Look at every aspect of this country is messed up. Look at housing, for instance, the housing deficit we have in Nigeria. If governors of each state decide to cut down housing deficits by 7.5% every year, they can achieve it. And if they do that for 4 years, we are looking at 30% off by the end of their first tenure. But they will never do that. The educational sector is sinking right before our eyes, yet government keeps increasing school fees and doing things that will make fees increase. Electricity tariffs keep increasing amidst darkness, severe darkness. So what is the pride in helping strangers when we are killing our own selves with wickedness? And the worst is that the masses who are the victims of this wickedness can't even unite to help themselves, to free themselves. Yet they say we help strangers. It is an absolute shame if we are specialists at helping others but can't help ourselves. Now, let us look at the top stories. Tinubu and his paid Southeast slaves like ORJI or KALU continue to make effort to win the Southeast over for Tinubu, saying that he has almost totally fallen out with the North, but their latest effort in Enugu has been heavily rejected by the Southeast. Concurrently, Tinubu and his cabinet have now gone from blaming Buhari to blaming Nigerian citizens for Tinubu's failure. Before I show you details of these top stories and how Nigerians reacted, let me quickly show you this video.
First, I think it was a bit of ironic, though, that the president, like I said, rejoiced and rightly said, I'm happy if the other party is in crisis because it's not my job to fix them. And then, not up to a week, he got his own happening right there. Again, let's be clear that the relationship between presidents and vice presidents or governors and their deputies are partly structural and a little bit of also psychological in terms of personality traits. And President Tinubu has clearly shown that he finds it difficult to work with deputies. As a governor, he had the distinction of the honor of having 3 deputies, and each of them got thrown out in very, chaotic and, not palatable, process. And again, their career got ruined largely because of that outcome. Now we are dealing with something bigger than Lagos. And after being in power 4 years, incumbents suffer. Every bad outcome is here failing, whether you had good faith, or rigorous policy intervention, but it failed. So the economy is looking bad at the level of households, even though some macroeconomic index may have moved in the positive light, but people are suffering and struggling, and this resentment from the north everywhere. So some people are thinking that maybe he could focus on the middle belt as a zone to fight for, and that could trigger a need to have a compensation in the form of maybe a vice presidential candidate. Those are all still conjuncture. But what is clear is that this election is not an election you want to, incur block resentment. And so fighting Shettima, which is now being seen as fighting the North or the core North, or however he's been described as constituency, is not good for them. And what happened? The danger is that what happened in Borno has escalated too early. This notion, this has been something that will be in the background, and maybe when Tinubu clinches this ticket, somehow he springs a surprise, and before people react and adjust, communication goes into smoother the foray. But they had shown the hand too early. It's not good for Shettima either, because this looks like now a fight in your face that, look, my own camp says I must be in this ticket, and this camp doesn't want this ticket. So it further damages the relationship between the president and his vice politically, and again, it puts the president under the spotlight that now they are reading him, and if he finally displaces or disposes of Shetima, it's going to have a bigger political blowback than if it happened, surprisingly, and then you could communicate that in a manner that people will say, okay. But here, it's like they are pitched for war. So it's a real bad moment for Mr. President Tinubu's re-election. It's going to mobilize and feed into the growing quote-unquote anti-North position and the coalition that is largely building from the North. So in my sense, it's a disaster. It should have probably managed better. They could have gone ahead with Tinubu Shetima all the way and leave that decision, like Tinubu people have argued, as a large decision that the president makes. In history, incumbent presidents always wrong with their vice, but Tinubu has proved that he's not a usual politician, and we won't be surprised if Shetima is removed or replaced, rather.
You heard that. I believe Tinubu tried to test the waters in Northeast with that endorsement without Shetima, because Tinubu is known to never be able to work with the same deputies over his tenure. So there has always been this suspicion that Shetima would be removed the moment Shetima began to have some nerves to attack some of the things that Tinubu was doing. But Tinubu actually showed his hands too early. And that's what Sam Amadi is pointing out there. He tried to see what the reaction of the Northeast will be when he finally drops Shetima. But that move has completely damaged the trust he has with his supporters there. If he had left it until later in 2026, he may have been able to take them by surprise, and maybe he will quickly be able to make amends. But then again, he tried that move to see beforehand if he will be able to deal with the consequences of removing Shetima. But the bottom line is, Shetima and his camp have now clearly known that Tinubu plans evil for them, and loyalty will clearly be divided at this point. And that is good for Nigeria. Anything that will make the APC weaker should be celebrated amongst the masses, because this same party has brought calamity upon this country, and Nigeria will never recover until they are able to unite and get rid of the APC. Now, let us look at the top stories. Tinubu and his cabinet have gone from blaming Buhari for their failure to blaming Nigerian citizens for Tinubu's massive failure as confusion hit their camp. And next is that update from Enugu. Tinubu and his southeast slaves mobilizing to win the IGBOS over for Tinubu. But once again, they met a heavy stumbling block. Let's start by taking that update from Tinubu's cabinet, blaming middlemen and marketers for his failure. Look at how the papers reported it. Tinubu government blames high food prices on certain middlemen inflating costs in cities. The Bola Tinubu-led Nigerian government has blamed Nigeria's persistently high food prices not on production shortages or official economic mismanagement, but on the activities of middlemen and retail profiteers who allegedly inflate costs between farms and urban markets. According to Ononuga, one of the primary reasons Nigerians are struggling with food price inflation is the exploitative role of intermediaries who buy goods from farmers at low prices and resell them at exorbitant rates in cities. Giving a personal example to support his claim, Ononuga recalled, "I was in Lagos recently and I bought a crate of eggs. I didn't even check the price until I was about to leave, and I was told it cost 10,000 naira. I asked my driver if that could be right. He wasn't sure, as he doesn't actually buy egg crates. But when I returned to Abuja and purchased the same crate at the fruit market in Maitama, it cost 6,000 naira. The Lagos supermarket ripped me off." He fumed. This sort of arbitrary price fixing by retailers is making life harder for ordinary Nigerians. You heard that? First of all, I don't believe the Lagos story that Bayo Ononuga told, period. I can't believe anything he says. Secondly, you remove subsidy. Petrol goes from 190 to 1,000 naira. You increase import duties. You hike everything, electricity tariffs and all, and you expect that it will not reflect on the prices of goods. This tells you how shallow-minded these people in power are and why Nigerians are suffering the way they are suffering now. And Sylvester here says, What this government does, it hikes the prices of everything and then blame businessmen who are trying to get their profit after paying government dues. That is it. You make everything difficult, and when the marketers try to get their profits, you say they are being insensitive. And just as Nigerians were yet reacting to that update coming all the way from Enugu, southeast Nigeria, began making the rounds. The fraudsters are at it again. They have set up another fake Southeast group to try to give Southeast the impression that people are embracing Tinubu. But the people said, no, we see through you and you can never convince us. Look at how the papers reported it. Igbo group backs Tinubu Shetima presidential ticket despite dissenting voices at the recent Northeast Zonal meeting of the All Progressive Congress in Maiduguri, Borno State. A pro-Igbo political group, Igbo Arise for Tinubu and Shetima 2027, has thrown its weight behind the re-election bid of Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Kashim Shettima. At a press conference held in Enugu on Thursday, the group endorsed the Tinubu-Shettima joint ticket for a second term, citing continuity and developmental gains as key reasons for their support. National coordinator of the group, Comrade Michael Orakazi, commended Shettima's unwavering loyalty to Tinubu, describing it as instrumental to the administration's bold policy choices. According to the group, the current administration has shown unmatched political will by making tough but necessary decisions, such as removing fuel subsidy, pursuing local government autonomy through a Supreme Court ruling, and initiating tax reforms at the National Assembly. This administration is arguably the best since Nigeria's return to democracy in 1999. It has taken decisive steps that others before it avoided, all in a bid to strengthen democratic governance and promote long-term national growth, Iroakazi stated. You saw that. Now, one of the reasons we will never see updates like this and let it slide is because politics is about perception. Most people cannot think for themselves. When they see something like this, they'll say, some Southeast groups are already endorsing Tinubu. Maybe he's the man. That is why whenever we see it, because of those people, we will take it up. We will discredit it anywhere we see it, both online and offline, to let people know that this is propaganda and it is all lies. And of course, they want to also send a message to the Northerners that you people are disagreeing with Tinubu. The Southeast is now aligning with him. Don't create a situation where the Southeast will now benefit more. You know, all those sentimental lies just to dissuade the unsuspecting, to dissuade people that are not so wise. That is why we will not let it slide. It is a big lie. There are no groups. It's just a few persons that they paid. And I'll say congratulations to those people because they have been making their own money, and let them continue to make. But everybody knows that Tinubu is not getting anything in the Southeast. And of course, we could see that in the reaction, thousands of reactions within hours that this update came up. Thousands and thousands of people from the Southeast came up and began to curse the administration that they will even get lower votes than they got in 2023. And Olusegun Bakari here says, not only Igbo group, but every Nigerian is backing it. Stop smoking peppered weed. You won't hear. That is it. Even Olusegun, who is not from the Southeast, knows that this man will never get anything there. And this tweet here by Ajay says, which Igbo group? The paid actors? No legitimate group can honestly back this failure with the intent to destroy Nigeria for a second term. Not Igbos, not the Southerners, not North Central, not the North, perhaps not even the Southwest, with exception of the Ronus. That is it. Only the Yoruba Ronu people can vote Tinubu. And this tweet here by Uche says, even if Association of Brothers and Sisters-in-Law to Peter Obi endorse Tinubu, we will never vote APC. Shockingly, if Peter Obi endorses another, we will still vote him. Not transferable, not negotiable. Is Peter Obi the man? The rest should take a rest. Wow. And Jay here says, which Igbo group? Keep Igbo out of your rubbish propaganda. That is it. Let the East be. And Privilege here says, group of drunks who want to have a sip from the national beverage. Tinubu no fit score 200,000 votes in the Southeast. I'm sure of that. And Letitia here says, which one be Igbo group? You don't know how we function. That is why we are talking some nonsense seriously. And Steve Odogu here says Igbo group, but unnamed, unknown, no normal group of Nigerians who support the APC. That is it. No normal human being in this country will wake up from his house in 2027, take his bath, and go to a polling unit to go and cast vote for the APC. It is not possible to go and cast vote for Tinubu or whoever he's running with. If that person is not benefiting directly and he does that, then he's not normal. Because I am sure 100% that things will be much worse in 2027 than they are now. It is not pessimism. These guys are not going to do anything about it. You have heard them. They have not promised you that they will change things. Everything they are saying now is propaganda. This is what we will continue to hear as the country continues to sink. Why? Because this is the APC. They have come to steal, to kill, and to destroy. And this is why I keep telling Nigerians that if we desire to have a country that we can be proud of, then we must come together, jettison our sentiments, and get rid of the APC. But until then, make I still enter town. Make I go get some ogbonge political news wey una go like. Why? Because now because of una, now I dey here. So don't go away. Don't go away.